of the day, everyone. I will be presenting my presentation on localizing SDGs, what we can learn from the northeast of India, as I have spent majority of my life there. All right. So, what is sustainable development? Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The concept of sustainable development can be interpreted in many different ways, but at its core is an approach to development that looks to balance different and often competing needs against an awareness of the environmental, social, and economic limitations we face as a society. We all of us have read this definition in our high school textbooks or college textbooks, but today I'm going to show you the pictorial depiction of sustainable development. As you can see, there are three different spheres: social, economic, and environmental. Sustainable development lies when all of these meet. Contrary to the belief of many people that sustainable development is only about environment, social sphere covers things like access to education, food, water, shelter, dignity, and livelihood. And the environment covers climate and the biodiversity, while the economic covers the economic activities which are paramount importance for any activity in social or environment spheres. Moving on, let's come to the reality of things. While sustainability lies in synchronous development across all three pillars, the reality is actually something else. The GDP and economic development is given the most priority, followed by social development, while the environmental pillar takes a backseat. And hence you can see the collapsing columns. While it is also worth noting that sustainable development is a result of simultaneous development across all the pillars, not their individual sum. That's society, economy, and environment, which is actually sustainability. Moving on to coherence. Think of it as a Rubik's Cube. How do you solve one? How do you focus on all the sides at once? Or do you solve them one by one? You can't just be like, okay, I'll solve the red first, then the green, then the white, and so on. You have to solve them one by one, and you have to make sure all of the sides are solved at the same time. You have you have to focus on all of the sides at once. Similarly, for sustainable development, you have to focus on all the pillars of sustainable development at one time. Moving on, SDGs as a network. All the SDGs are interconnected. As you can see here, every SDG impacts the other SDG either positively or negatively. Now, it is not as simple as it seems here. Doesn't seem too complex yet, does it? Just wait. This is a real picture. The SDGs have 28,392 in total. Hence, it's really important to weigh our actions with the consequences for all the interlinked SDGs. Agenda 2030 identified five pillars of sustainable development. Like, we have people, prosperity, peace, partnership, and planet. With the focus on people, it is end poverty and hunger in all forms and ensure dignity and equality. With prosperity, it is ensure prosperous and fulfilling lives in harmony with nature. With peace, it's foster peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. And partnership, implement the agenda through a solid global partnership. And while planet implies protect our planet's natural resources and climate for future generations. Moving on to synergies and trade-offs. This charts this chart shows the synergies and trade-offs of all the SDGs against the other SDGs. Now let's come to the northeast aspect of it, which is the Sikkim Green Mission. Alright, so the objectives of the Sikkim's Green Mission was establishing green spaces and public leisure areas, mitigating erosion and surface runoff on the downhill side, cultivating native trees, shrubs, herbs, climbers, conifers, fruits, and medicinal plants to create a genetic diversity repository, restricting enro- encroachments on areas set rights for roads, providing pedestrians with shade, inducing cloud condensation by increasing total precipitation through aerographic microclimatic effects, reducing noise pollution for homes nearby, attracting and protecting butterflies, corals, and other avian wildlife, encouraging environmentally responsible and sustainable tourism, transitioning Sikkim into a garden state, planting trees extensively around highways, empty land, streams, and waterfalls. You will actually be shocked to know that Sikkim is one of the only states in India which possess maximum of the which is actually a really green state, and it possesses maximum of the forest cover in the northeast as well. And yet these are the goals that we still have to follow to make it a sustainably to have sustainable ambition for sustainable development. All right, so in contrast to traditional growth approaches, sustainable development has become an alternative paradigm, particularly in countries like India. Sikkim, a state in the northeastern India, is home to thriving indigenous population and an abundance of flora and fauna. However, the region's ecology and social cohesiveness are under danger due to the increase in tourism and economic growth. The government of Sikkim kicked off its ambitious green mission with the number of goals to address the challenges as we discussed in the last slide. Coming on to the phased approach, now not everything can be done right, with one go. You have to you have to process it and you have to put it in steps to actually achieve it in the realistic world. There were three phases to this. The project sought to cover the entire state in 3 years, from 2006 to 7 and 2008 to 9. In phase 1, which lasted from 2006 to 7, a sampling production, preparation, and achieving 20% of the planting goal were accomplished. In phase 2, 2007 to 2008, was the active phase with an emphasis on sustaining existing plants and attaining the aim of 50% plantings. The final phase, phase 3, focused on completing the remaining 30% of the planting objective while continuing maintenance work. Moving on to the result, the outcomes were outstanding as several ecotourism projects were adopted and a complete ban on chemical pesticides was effectively put into place. The initiative benefited more than 66,000 agricultural households. As the first region in the world with 100% sustainable agriculture, Sikkim emerged as a leader for scaling up agroecology. In recognition of its accomplishments, the FAO presented Sikkim with the prestigious Future Policy Award Gold Prize in 2018. Sikkim launched almost 29 hydroelectric power projects, along with smaller ones on the river Teesta, concurrently with the Green Mission in order to generate income and support development. Given that 30% of India's river waters originate from the northeastern region, Sikkim initiatives contribute significantly to sustainable development in the country. Thank you so much. That was the end of my presentation.
The real definition of the SDGs, contrary to the misconceptions that people have. Then after that, the interlinkages and the synergies and trade-offs between different SDGs and how we can progress on sustainable development as a whole and not in different silos or different niches. And then the example which you presented of the localization of SDGs and sustainable development in Northeast is indeed inspiring, and I'm sure that it will inspire the stakeholders which are watching this session to inculcate these points within their day-to-day work for better implementation and advancement of the sustainable development goals. And so, thanks a ton once again for taking out time and wishing you all the very best. Thank you.